The violence, riots, and destruction that have taken place in Milwaukee is an assault on the right of all citizens to live in security and to live in peace. Law and order must be restored. The war on our police must end, and it must end now.
You know, it's crazy, right? I mean, to think that your own police officers are at risk for just trying to patrol their own cities. I mean, that's really a form of anarchy. And so you see Donald Trump campaigning on this, promising to restore law and order. Trump making it very clear that under his presidency, violence against anyone will not be tolerated. He made those comments at just a few miles from Milwaukee, which is a city that has been rocked by violent riots in recent days. And Trump blames the left policies for the mess so many cities like Milwaukee are in. Listen to this here.
My opponent, Hillary, would rather protect the offender than the victim. Big problem in our society. Hillary Clinton-backed policies are responsible for the problems in the inner cities today, and a vote for her is a vote for another generation of poverty, high crime, and lost opportunities.
So is this going to resonate with voters? Joining me right now, the author of War on Cops, Heather McDonald. Good to see you, Heather. You and I have talked about this before. I mean, you know, we have come so far as a country, really. I mean, you know, and there is still racism that exists. However, it's nothing like it previously has been. And yet, Heather, we're dealing with that in the streets of Milwaukee right now. Why?
Well, because we've had what Trump rightly called a false narrative about the police for the last 2 years, started by the Black Lives Matter activists, but amplified by President Obama, echoed by Hillary Clinton, that says that cops are on a lethal homicide surge against blacks. That is simply false. But we shouldn't be surprised when you have the President of the United States and the leading Democratic contender for that office constantly telling blacks that they are being preyed upon out of the most vicious racism by the cops. We shouldn't be surprised when we have outbreaks, assassinations of officers, and outbreaks against the very foundation of a civilized society, which is people's livelihoods, property, and lives.
Let me get away from the cops for a moment. And by the way, just, you know, I think our viewers know this, but this was a black officer shooting a black man. So it's not as though this was a race thing, this, you know, but yet people want to make it into that. But let me talk about these communities and why they're struggling so much. I mean, you've seen the statistics, Heather. The babies being born to single moms, 78% of babies today being born to single moms by African Americans. I mean, the numbers are kind of staggering, and you think of the socioeconomic disenfranchisement that they're dealing with, and in some ways it's no wonder that there is far more crime in these communities.
Well, Trish, you've put your finger on the most important cause of this violence, which is kids growing up without fathers, and as importantly, kids growing up without the expectation, boys growing up without the expectation that they have to become bourgeois citizens and marry the mother of their children. Until that problem is solved, we are going to be dependent on the police to maintain order, because families are not doing so. But
how do you solve it when, you know, a woman may prefer to be married to Uncle Sam than married to the father of her child, because it's easier, less headache, and you get a paycheck every week in the form of welfare?
Well, yeah, I think you need to actually restore the stigma to single parenting, and we've got all of feminism that we're going to have to fight to do that. But I think society has to be just univocal and insistent in saying that fathers have an essential role to play in raising their children. Feminism has taught us to forget that truth, and we think that males are somehow an expendable option when a mother is deciding to have a child. That is just not the case.
Yeah. Well said, well put, as always. Heather McDonald, thank you so much.
Thank you, Trish.